What's nice about the hilly road course is that this is kind of a longer race. You can see the course profile on the right-hand side there. It's a big old bump up and comes down. That particular race, it doesn't up and down. You can also see the corners and the curves. So when you're coming up the hill, you might be able to break away from some people in the pack, but you could also blow that lead on the way down by wiping out in a corner. So it'll be interesting to see how the racers play that. Race number 2 today will be a flat track race on Cade Kart Grand Prix. You can see that it's a pretty flat course, couple bumps there that can come into play, particularly when you go up, down, and get a little bit of that acceleration and carry that into the corner. You're likely to slide, be able to slide on out. So you're going to have to watch that. But a very short 4.2 kilometer neck and leg slapper lap. Like an easy for me to say, leg snapper as well as mental snapper. Race number 3 today, we are going to be on Cadeville. This is another road course, 6.7 kilometers. Again, a medium difficulty on this race. And so we'll see how they transition from that very technical course to this course that has its own series of twists and turns as well. And the power-ups are going to be able to help us out on that. And then finally, we're wrapping up the 4th race of the day. Is going to be the 2.3 kilometer Cade Kart Aurora. So that one will be very fun to see. Let's talk a little bit about those power-ups before we go there. Rocky Mountain, that's only going to have 2 power-ups. Race number 2, race number 3, and race number 4. So on our first race, we have no power-ups. I think I just misspoke right there. Race 2, Corner Caper, you have one of those. Quantum Shift, one of those. So in this race number 2, you don't get a refill. So you have to be very strategic about when you use it. Corner Caper, of course, prevents you from sliding out in a corner if you're taking on too much speed. And Quantum Shift lets you go through other people. So if you're at the back of the pack, you can get a nice lead out for a sprint. That's the way that I'd use it, my friends. Or if I'm getting blocked in on dark matter, that doesn't matter. We'll talk about that when we go. We're going to go right to our race here. Our first race, Rocky Mountains, no power-ups in play. And they are out of the gate. You can see that all of the avatars are semi-transparent. That's the first part of the race where the racers can actually kind of jockey for position. Once they're in the position that they want to be, then they are starting with their tactics and how they're going to roll this out. Now you can see right there, Pedro coming to the front. Mark Allen not letting Pedro take the lead there, setting the pace down, 739 watts. You can see his heart rate ticking up there on the rider's chart on the right-hand side. He's highlighted in yellow. And there he is in person. So you see the avatar and then you see him in the game. But coming right on his heels, you can see that Mark is out saying, okay, now I'm at the front here. I've got to pick my line. I'm going to settle in. Someone came with me, but a crash! Nicely handled there. He actually was able to shake that rider off, and I'm thinking that's Mark. No, Mark and Mark. I think I'm gonna be terrible with that last name. So Pedro in third. You can see that a group is forming about 4 seconds back behind Mark here. So now this is going to be interesting. With just 5 seconds up the road, this group can certainly close that gap down on Mark, and it's a 14.7 kilometer race still. So there's plenty of real estate for these racers to close in on Mark. And Mark's heart rate is 182. And you can see relative to the other racers, that makes sense because he's out in front. He doesn't have anyone to work with here. But Pedro's taking a pull on the front. We've got some riders that we've seen here. We've got Jeff, we've got Sebastian, we've got Carl Axel, we've got Shaq, Homer, Lisa, Ryan, all these names we've seen before. Peter Casper, Kay Thompson. So we do have some, and Vanessa as well. We do have some teammates out here on course today. With the team CCC is Homer and Kay and Peter. And I don't see them maybe creating a coalition, but that might happen. Does look like Mark is still out 4 seconds in front. And Pedro's setting down quite a pace there for these other riders to match, trying to say, you know what, I'm going to close the gap. I'm going to do my job on the front of the pace here. And here we go. I think Frank's coming. Frank, how are you?
Sorry, all sorts of audio issues today. And the last one is I just didn't turn on my headset. But the
I've done
other
that
issues
before.
Confused me a little bit. So Mark out here in the lead. I guess he's rested. He's putting in a huge effort. The peloton is thinned in the line. I think we lost Ryan in that corner I was talking about. Ryan, a new rider, probably caught out in that corner. Probably too much acceleration, maybe a little too much braking, or maybe just a little too much speed. But Ryan will, figure that out. Looks like he's climbed back on to the back here. It's pretty difficult to crash in these corners. So Ryan just sort of glide through the corners, and you'll learn more as you go. But I think they're just letting Mark hang out here. Nope, I guess they're pulling him back in. But big effort by Mark here at the beginning. It's going to be hard to hold that till the end of the race.
Yeah, I mean, if Mark's seeing that lead, dwindle down here, he's best just to kind of pop right into the mix and let some other folks do the work for a while here. Here we are on our copter cam. It's a beautiful day here on Rocky Mountain Course. 1 lap, 13.1 kilometers to go. Look at the light through the trees. It's an absolutely beautiful day for racing. Frank, are you upset that you're in the commentator booth, or you wish you were out on course?
I am very upset I'm in the commentator booth. I probably would have climbed on and raced today, except Kathy, my wife, I think she would have tackled me. I wanted to avoid any injury to myself or to my wife, so I stayed off the bike today.
Well, you know what? Your health is most important. So you get stuck with me in here. So that's Ryan Miller. We were talking about him earlier a little bit. He had a crash early in the race. Looks like he's figuring some things out, putting some pace on here. You can see the speed, 42 kilometers. And if he is a new rider here, there are some dynamics for new riders to talk about. We have a long race. Frank, do you want to just maybe give our viewers a little bit of a heads up on what that means?
Yeah, he's getting a little bit of a boost here, probably from equalization, as the system, he's new to the system, and so the system is figuring out just exactly how much power he can output, and it's going to be making real-time corrections to compensate for that. But at the beginning, he probably has a little bit of an advantage on power that will dwindle as the race goes on and be non-existent probably in the second half of the race, something like that. But it did allow to recover from that unexpected crash, as an example. So good dynamics for new riders as they come in. And of course, we see Jeff saying, well, I think I can up the pace here a little bit. But generally, the peloton's about at FTP, which is 421 equalized watts.
That's really a great reference point here. You see Jeff out on front. So when you're looking at those numbers in the riders list, of course, you have the position, you have their country of origin flag or whichever flag they want to have, their name, their speed, their heart rate, the relative heart rate, and then, as you said, the watts. And in game, so 421, just for folks, threshold for everybody varies. But in the game gives you a pro power because it's calculating your basically your biology and your physiology to say, well, you know what, my threshold, I don't know what it is these days, Frank, but let's just take a nice round number like 200. And so my 200 watts and what my body reacts to 200 watts is the same as it would react to anybody's 421 in the game, even if their watts are 450, 700. And I'm simplifying it, Frank, because I know you'll correct me on the math, but I'm trying to just keep it on the level for the rest of us that aren't the engineers in the crowd. How am I doing?
You're doing great. And when I try and simplify it, I say it's like your TV. It just works. You don't really have to think about it too much. We mention it here from time to time because it's a great feature of CadeSport. But what you're also seeing with CadeSport is the fantastic drafting dynamics. And here you see the riders are starting to sort of spread across the road. We don't even have to look at the power.
Whoa, Carl Axel dropped a little attack. I'm sorry. He just put on a little dig there of that little punch there. I didn't know if he was going to try to make it stick, but he just took a kick at the other racers. Carry on, Frank. Sorry, I didn't want to call that out. He made a few people crash.
Yes, so Carl is like a fox here. So he is causing people to wreck. Right. So he is definitely going through those corners and saying, "Hey, you guys said this wasn't technical. You're wrong. I stand corrected, Carl. You're causing everybody to go down." But what you also see in terms of the drafting dynamics is when he put that power down, you saw the pack that was sort of spreading across the road immediately goes down to that one line, just like in real life cycling. And here you see the line is pulling him back, and you see everybody sort of forming up in those standard lines. Nobody wants to let Carl go away. He had a clean sweep on Saturday, and it looks like Carl is going for the clean sweep today.
Yep. And let's talk about that tactic. We'll break it down a little bit here. We were talking about the drafting dynamics. The pack was ticking together. This is when the pack can really take advantage of the draft. So if you're not pulling, you can be resting your legs. And Carl said, you know what? I know I'm going to put the power down, but I don't want to take the whole group with me. Ooh, a few more pileups there. People going down a little too fast. And this is what we're seeing about Carl making the technical look easy. Not only the physical as he went. Oh, I was so close. I thought he was going to go. I'm like swinging his praises. And I'm like, he knows he's going to crash. He's got to like back down. Slow down, Carl. But when he made that little punch, he made the other folks chase. And there's this psychology in CadeSport that when someone gets ahead of you, you've got to just go chase them. It's your leg's natural intention. But if you lose track of your speed and you take a corner too fast, he's just baiting these guys saying, come and catch me, and then slowing down at the exact right moments. I mean, it doesn't show on screen, Frank, but the technical stuff that he's executing right here is pretty remarkable.
Well, and it also highlights, I think we're a little tech heavy. We tried to go endurance heavy last week, or at least balance it. I think we were targeting a bit of a balance this week as well, but it definitely appears we've been tech heavy, so probably advantage Carl. But one of the things that I find interesting, you see Peter Castro here pulling back up to Carl. You see Sebastian, who's always been a good technical rider, but you see these guys
Sebastian
pulling
giving a
back
punch.
up to Carl.
He's giving a punch. Homer answers that. Sebastian came around and said, stop talking about Carl Axel. I'm still here. You know me, Sebastian. Homer comes to the front. So we've got two CCC riders here together, and Peter and Homer, that's a dangerous combination for two soloists like Sebastian and Carl Axel. It looks like they're dropping back a little bit, Frank. So that was a great move.
Yeah, so this is come over the top. You outsmarted a few of us, not all of us. Peter and Homer made it through all those corners. And I was about to mention that. So Peter's skill is really developing massively in the last week or so. So he's really getting the hang of riding Kate Sport and including the technical skills into his riding. And I wonder if his paradigm has shifted a little bit from other virtual cycling platforms more into a real cycling paradigm. Maybe that's helping him. Maybe something else is helping him. Here we see Sebastian the Beast. And this is an interesting room that he's in. That almost looks like a prison cell, and he looks serious with regards to riding. I think Sebastian's scaring me a little bit, and we complete lap 1.
All right, lap 1 down. We're on lap 2 now. And I love seeing the racers in their environments. Cyclists like to call the place where they work out a pain cave. But thanks to Cade Sport, it's also the best kind of pain, because it's lots of fun with friends in competition here. Homer's settling into a pretty strong pace here, trying to just set the pace and seeing who's going to come with him. Just getting enough distance to maybe not let Sebastian get the draft, kind of opening up a little bit here, making Sebastian and Carl Axel do the work. You can see Peter in the back, just wisely using the group, saying, "You can chase him down. That's my teammate up there. I'm not gonna do the work. You do the work." That did come back together, and I think we're gonna see that a lot on this lap, where they just kind of get stretched out a little bit. You're on the front for a long time. That fatigue starts to set in, and at some point you do have to kind of drift back and let someone else take the pole. When these teams are they're all racing against each other, except for Peter and Homer can have some tactics and play some games here on the other two. But the reality is that you need to know what you have in your legs for this race, and also the three other races ahead. Interesting thing here about Peter, he is on the rollers that you just saw him there, which means that his trainer his bike isn't on a fixed trainer. He's literally on rollers, like rolling pins. And that's a lot of balance to not only steer in the game, because these riders are steering, they are making lane position choices. They're not just willy-nilly floating around where the game puts them based on power or other mysterious mechanisms and magic. But, they really... Go ahead.
Jeff Bridging here, a fantastic kart. So he got caught out. He hasn't been riding as much as some of the other riders, so I think his skill level isn't coming up quite as fast. He got caught out in one of those brilliant tactical moves from Carl, but he's made his way back. Ryan's making his way back. These guys putting in some really big effort. Ryan at 267 equalized heart rate, so that I didn't even think our system would display that. So obviously some equalization needs to be at play there. But it's fantastic that these guys worked and got back on this group. Now Sebastian, the Beast, and I'd love to see him on screen again, because that's just scary in terms of the way that he looked, and he's certainly going to put the hammer down here and make it difficult on the other riders. I love that he's in black. He's in black in the game. It's very easy to see who he is. And I just like the look of Sebastian today. So maybe Sebastian is going to try and take out Carl here today.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. He does look serious, and if you were saying that that's sort of maybe like a cell or a containment, the warden has delivered the bicycles for good behavior and said, now you may ride, and he is taking this and treating it like a job. One of the things that I love about all of these riders is their intensity and their commitment. And these races, I mean, let's be honest here. We do fun, we do fitness, we want to race, we're competitors, but the level of competition here between the racers and the friendly camaraderie and stuff is something that's remarkable, and that gets played out in game too. So if you're not familiar with Cade Sport racing, within the game there are communication channels, and people can stream and talk to each other and race and talk through tactics, private channels with your team. So the camaraderie that happens during these races and at the end with all the trash talking is amazing. But when they get down to work, those are some serious faces that you're seeing. You can see here they're all stretched out in a peloton. They're not like bunched up 2 by 2, single all the way down. It's a beautiful shot there coming around the corner. Everybody holding on, nobody wiping out in the corner. And I'm not really seeing any attacks here. We've got Homer taking a turn on the front, giving Sebastian a little bit of break. We've got Jeff, wisely taking a breather. So Ryan and Jeff kind of tucking in, saying like, I bridged the gap. Yeah. I'm going to just kind of Go ahead.
We see Homer putting in a big effort at the front, and we saw Peter at the back. Standard team tactics here. Homer really probably our most significant endurance rider in terms of mileage and time. And I think if he takes a little
there
bit
goes
of
a
a
little attack there. Yes.
Yep,
Now
Jeff
he
off the
answered.
front. Carl responding with 1,000 equalized watts. So that's a big response. And are they coming up on any curves? Because if they are, will Carl try and bait Jeff into a corner mishap again? We're on a long straight here, so this just favors power.
Yeah, and we know that that these two riders have power, and it's just a matter of like what can they open up to the group behind them. Looks like they've got a good 2 seconds on the riders behind them. You know, certainly
and
with
these guys are way into the hurt locker. They're in the 197s on equalized heart rate. This is the pain cave. For sure.
That's right. The data point there is max heart rate for everyone in the game is calibrated to 200, correct?
That is correct. And if you see it going over that, that means somebody is at a higher heart rate than we've ever seen them before while racing or just being in the game. And now we're going around these corners. Jeff, very careful around the corners, very wise. He's not going to just follow Carl willy-nilly. And it'll be interesting to see. Now, when I talk about endurance, so I talked about Homer. I've known Jeff for a very long time, Jeff Rooney, who's in second position here, putting out about 500 equalized watts. He is a 24-hour race specialist. So when we talk about endurance, he's going to have a lot of that. So Carl's going to have to really rely on his technical skills to lose Jeff.
Yeah, and Jeff, the thing about Jeff too is that this is what you have to think about when you think about, wow, you know, these endurance athletes. I mean, right now, he's probably just starting to get warmed up, you know, because these guys have an engine that has a really slow burn. So this really, you know, favors well for Jeff. But Jeff and Carl, you know, I know what Carl can do because I've seen in the last couple of weeks. Jeff has been in. Oh, Peter goes down a little bit back.
Peter goes down, but Jeff did an excellent job of going through that last corner. I don't know if you noticed, but he stopped pedaling. He coasted through the corner. Maximum grip into the tires if you're not braking. And you're not accelerating. Some deceleration due to not pedaling can also decrease your traction, but basically the easiest way to maximize your traction through a corner is to coast through the corner, and we saw Jeff doing that, so he didn't get caught out. Peter, unfortunately, got caught out, but it looks like him and Homer, it looks like Homer was off the back doing his work for the day, and now it's really probably down to the three heavyweights. And I don't know if I'd call Jeff a heavyweight yet, but he's got heavyweight potential when we were talking about his 24-hour sort of race cycle. He's very committed to cycling. And so now you've really got Sebastian, Carl, and Jeff sort of vying in the last 2 kilometers here. We see Carl taking the corners very, very well. And that's giving him a big advantage as they move towards home. And there is some technical sections before the line. So advantage Carl here.
Yeah, with 1.9 kilometers to go, he's got a 2-second lead on Jeff, 3-second lead on Sebastian. So, you know, a crash for Carl Axel to get back up to speed is a 2-second penalty. So, and depending on how fast you speed up, if you're in a corner, all of these things. So, what his role right now is to hold as much sacrifice his technical. Crashing, basically.
And just like in real life, you know, on a descent, we see this, you know, in the Tour de France and all of that all the time. Cornering is a big skill in cycling, and it's super important. And we see that Carl's using that to his advantage. You know, if we were looking at the Tour de France right now, we would be saying, you know, Carl's just a phenomenal descender, and he's, you know, he's gotten a gap and all of that. And
Jeff
you see
dropping some power. Jeff dropped some power.
Yeah, Jeff says, you know what? Let's talk about the 24 hours that I've put into my bike in races. So I'm going to respond here. We see Carl upping it as well. Sebastian hanging back. Sebastian says, you know what? I think I'm going to take it for the day in the technical courses. I just need to finish here and hold my position. But Jeff is saying no such thing. He's in his NZ Bro kit, and it looks like he wants to take the win for NZ Bro today.
Oh boy, here. So we've got 0.7 kilometers to go. So right now, Jeff coming in close, getting maximum draft from Carl Axel. You can see the power differentiation there. 532 on the front and 480 in the back here. Those little differences make a huge difference to tired legs. 0.4 kilometers to go in this first race of a 4-race play set. It's going to come down to a sprint. Sebastian has enough of a lead on Peter behind him that even if he crashes, he'll take that third position. Jeff comes around Carl Axel here, pumping up there, 47 kph. Carl Axel still at 42, so maybe Carl Axel knows something that Jeff doesn't know, but it does look like he made it through at 46 on that corner. Interesting. So that's really great to know. Jeff comes across the line first. It didn't even come down to a sprint. He said, Beth, I don't need a sprint because I know this last corner is 47, and Carl didn't respond the same way. I don't know if he was afraid of crashing, but that was a surprising that he didn't come back after Jeff. I think he just didn't want to crash.
Yeah, that was interesting. Maybe Carl saving his legs. He says, I've got the technical skills for the next 3 maps, and just hanging in there. But a fantastic win by Jeff. Fantastic heart to come back after a little bit of a mishap. Carl didn't have any mishaps, so that certainly helped. And this is interesting. Homer crosses the line first, so they may be riding for Homer today at Team CCC.
Yeah, that was some nice watching the dynamics of the team there at play there, kind of coming across the line together. Now, this rider's name, because I can't pronounce his last name, I know I've called his name before. This isn't Mark. This is... That was Martin. Yep. Yes. Okay. That was Martin. Sorry, Martin. I butchered your name earlier, Martin. I will never forget again here. Ryan came down after Martin. Here he comes Mark Allen, who had an early attack off the front, wasn't able to hold it, and then did come across the line. So these are the live results for race 1 of our 4-race play set. Jeff at Jeff the Looney or Jeff the Rooney up top. With a nice finish over Carl Axel, Sebastian, Homer, Peter, Martin, Ryan, Mark, and Lisa. We do have other riders out on course. Will you be tallying the points for us across the day today, Frank?
Yeah, the points are tallied. It's not fully automated yet, but it's partially automated, and hopefully by Thursday fully automated. To the stream, but they are updated at the moment.
That's great. Okay, so that's how we are shaping up here. That was race number 1. We're moving into race number 2. I like to, as the commentator, have a little bit of control of what information we give to people when. So, Frank, I don't care if it's automated yet. So, we're going into race number 2, the flat track 4.2 kilometer race of Cade Kart. So this race here, this is the final scoreboard here. See? Boom. Just like that, magic populated. We're waiting for some other people to come across the line, and you can see the points coming across with a 6-point lead between first and second, the same between second and third. So this will be interesting. And Cade, this technical course could really mix things up. I'm thinking Peter has a really nice opportunity here. Homer, I'd like to see what Martin can do. We know that that we've seen Pedro come along here. So, but what we see in these short races on Cade Kart type races is that the rider who goes out hard first and doesn't crash, if they can kind of hold that lead and make the rest of everybody chase them, that's one tactic. I think we saw that last week with Carl Axel, where he went out, got a good 2 or 3 second lead out of the gate and was able to hold that, because when you're in the chase position, psychologically, you kind of overcook it sometimes. So here we go, out of the gate, 3, 2, 1. They're all going to be transparent just for the lane positioning of the first few seconds of the race here. And over he goes, Sebastian down. Another, every time you see a little red. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was actually Jennifer Garcia. So I'm immediately biased. She's my daughter. So fair play, everybody know that. But she took off quickly. She's obviously hasn't spent enough time practicing her technical skills, because she went right into the barriers.
So great to have her back out on course and racing, and I need to adjust my glasses because it had happened so fast that I missed it. So thanks for calling that out. Jennifer, welcome back to the racing. So Sebastian here out in front, Carl Axel in second, and Timothy in third. So we're sitting here, these racers 3 seconds back with 3.7 kilometers to go, 3 laps. These go by pretty quickly. Some of these racers will be lapped. You will be able to know when, whoa! 2 double. There's 1 corner caper and 1 quantum shift, and those were just dumped by Carl Axel in the double action play here. Carl Axel is on a mission to open that gap up and say, okay, now you can chase me. I've got 11 seconds. I'm just going to settle in and putt for the last 3.3 kilometers.
Well, and it looks like Timothy has joined us late here today, so he's missed the double points that were available in the first race, which I'm sure he's disappointed about. He often gets tied up with trains. Oh, and he saves a skid
so
there.
Nice. That was a really nice move, Timothy.
Yep, and he's chasing down Carl at this point, who looks to have a big lead. So there must have been a crash in there somewhere, or maybe that was the power-ups. But that means Timothy's probably saved his power-ups for later use. And I think that's a really interesting tactical decision. Do you use your power-ups early, or do you use your power-ups late? I always like to use them early. Great braking there you saw from Timothy. One of the best in terms of technical. And as I'm giving him kudos, accelerates a little too quickly on that downhill, and it catches him.
No, that was Frank, Timothy. That was Frank, Timothy. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Just kidding. Okay, so here we go. There's a combo here. Both, and they're playing them as combos, which is interesting. So I know when we kind of think about these play sets, are we engineering these to sort of give some ones that are complementary, or do you think that that's maybe someone set the standard for using them, doubling them up like that? I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I think probably most of the people are using quantum shift when they're going fast, not because it's probably going to be necessary, but that way they don't have to worry so much about steering, Beth, while they're going super hard, because I think what they do is they drop those things and then they basically just sprint all out for the duration of the power-up, and they don't want to have to worry about bumping into somebody and that slowing them down, so they just want to go blasting by everybody, so I think that's why they do it in combination.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really smart move. I've seen that happen in a pack, and with this, I was like, maybe that's one that, I guess I've been at a finish line one too many times with a rider in front of me not letting me get around them on the sprint. So that's when I like to use my quantum shift. And as far as like, when do you use them, early or late? I think that it kind of depends. If you can command the race the way that Carl Axel has been commanding the race, you can use them when you want to. And then, so even if you had a philosophy of how you wanted to use it, you're really responding to the moves of the leader, right? Because you go into a game and you can have all kinds of, you go into a race, you have all kinds of, then I'm going to do this. And then like on the second lap of Rocky Mountain, I'm going to do this. But at the end of the day, you have to use them with the, those are the cards that are dealt, but you also have to read the room, And here we are back on with Sebastian. Doesn't look as ominous or angry right now, so maybe he's settled in. He's got a good position here. He knows what he needs to do. He's the shark.
The amount of concentration on these technical courses, and the Cade Kart courses are definitely technical. And Cadeville, which I think is a little bit more technical than we probably wanted in the third race, at least if I was a racer, a little bit more technical than I would want. But even Rocky Mountain ended up being a little bit more technical. So maybe we get Cade Fondo in there next week, and something else that's maybe Apex Mountains. Oh, Timothy is so good at turning into, the way that you save that, by the way, once you start skidding, just like in your car or like any other, it's just a physics property, you turn into the skid, you stop skidding, then you can turn back out of the corner, and we see that Timothy is very, very good at doing that. Now, interesting, Carl is moving to the top of the overall today, but he's not very far ahead of Sebastian, and then Jeff is still holding third place because of the double points. Now, we don't even see Jeff here, in the top 13, so he's probably suffering from technical more practice needed on these Cade Kart courses, because really what you've got to do is ride a rhythm uh, you don't you should not pay attention to anybody else unless you're one of the big heavyweights. But just
Oh,
relax.
Carl goes down. Okay, so Carl went down. It doesn't matter because I think he's got enough of a lead. But we did see Sebastian take a crash and Timothy overtake Sebastian here. But now Sebastian is coming right back together with Timothy. But now Timothy is setting the tone for the last 0.7 kilometers. But Sebastian coming around the inside. He is such a crafty rider. That is some beautiful, beautiful line selection. Here's Carl Axel coming up 0.5 kilometers to go. Still a good 32-second. Still a good lead. He doesn't have anything to worry about. Did make one mistake.
Oh, and
so
Sebastian was pushing it, and he went down. So we missed that on camera. But kudos to Sebastian, because what he was doing was saying, "Hey, you know what? I've got to push it here. I've got to get in front of Timothy. I've got to take some risks." And surprisingly, he's still within 2 seconds. So that's fairly surprising.
Yeah, the riders, I always say that's surprising. And I guess I kind of relate that to whether or not I could actually execute it. So it's surprising for someone like me, but it's not surprising for someone like Sebastian. And what I also find really interesting when I watch these racers races is because of their knowledge of the game and because of their knowledge of the maps, they do things that are just sort of like the chess move rather than the checkers move, because these racers are thinking across 4 races in a playlist. They're thinking about what their own skill set is and where they're going to spend their mental capacity and their physical capacity. Here you go, Timothy Termont taking a big jump at the lead there, and then Sebastian here, he'd use that corner caper at the end, so saving it and not using a double.
And you see Jeff actually moved up. Maybe I missed him in the so I stand corrected. He's going to finish 5th. He's going to be very close to the top. Oh, Pedro goes down, giving Jeff an opportunity here, but not enough. And then we've got Jennifer. So she piled into the barriers at the very beginning, but she's obviously a quick learner. I could be biased, but she's done very well to come up in 6th position.
Very nice. Yeah. And even the sitting here as a commentator watching these avatars move, and I can tell from, 2 years ago and the way that the game is developed, it's very, the cornering feels very organic. It's a nice, smooth lane changing, and it just looks really, really smooth, and it does make it look a lot easier than it is. But here we are, race 2, Carl Axel in first position. I can be biased because he's wearing the Velocity Vixen jersey. So well done. Timothy coming in 2nd, Sebastian, Pedro, Jeff, Jennifer, Homer, Kay. So far, we have Peter. There's boom, boom, boom. The Team CCC riders together. My friend Martin, and that is how the standings, the live results after race 2. So moving into Cadeville for a 6.7 kilometer race, we do have some power-ups in play. But tell me a little bit about Cadeville, Frank. You were saying that it's a little bit different than some of the other courses in that sort of vein.
Yeah, so what we've got here is tight corners. So this will be quite technical, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays today. Like I said, I think sort of accidentally on purpose maybe is how the riders would feel about this, but I can assure you it's a little bit accidental. I think we just ended up with much more technical courses now. At the top of this leaderboard, what I think is very interesting, Jeff, still in contention here. Cadeville will be a little less technical. Jeff, my tip to you would be just watch those corners, coast through the corners, follow Carl the whole time. Be wary that he might try and lull you into a corner going too fast, or he'll be braking early and that sort of stuff. But if you save it to the end for staying with the tech rider types of Carl and Sebastian, you can sprint at the end, and that might be advantage Jeff if he can hang on until that point.
Okay, and here we go, starting out of the gate. Again, they come out of the gate semi-transparent so they can fight for that lane position. And Jennifer coming out strong right out. She knows that these corners that she's going to have to slow down, so she is a quick learner. She figured out in the last game that the last race rather, that if you get out in front early and you can hold that lead and you can kind of guard against crashing in the corners, you have a really good opportunity of being on the podium. Timothy right behind her. Timothy, holding a nice inside line there. You can see his equalized watts. He's going up and down, so he's working on the straightaways and kind of slowing down enough in the corners here. We don't see these riders tightening up into a tight peloton or echelon, but I think that might happen, and this is where it might get dangerous, because you get into the draft, your legs start to realize you don't have to work as hard. You're not getting that feedback from your legs the same way. I mean, you're getting the feedback, and what that does, it can lull you into a sense of like how fast you're actually going. So if you're on the front and Timothy's on the front and you're holding his wheel, you best be minding what you're doing going into the corner, because he can brake more fluidly and faster than you to prevent a crash. And that's like super inside baseball, because I've ridden with these guys before. And boom, Jennifer goes down. Nice job off the front there, though, Jennifer. You held that together. A couple laps, you'll get it down solid here. Pedro here in the front. Nice, good tempo there. You can see him back off on the power as he goes through the corner. I'm watching the riders list. I'm watching the power on the far right side.
He probably accelerated just a little bit early out of that corner, and then Timothy says, nope, let me show you how to accelerate out of the corner. Wait a little bit longer, and then get up there. Now, Jennifer probably having a little bit of an advantage on the equalization, and she also did get into her Hive jersey. I heard that she had lost her Hive jersey in real life, or had misplaced it and was looking for it, but it looks like she's also misplaced it in game. So do keep in mind that Timothy and Jennifer are liable to work together, because they're on the same team, and it looks like they're trying to maintain a gap in front of Carl.
So with just 2 seconds, with 5.1 kilometers, this is something that Carl isn't at all really concerned about. He's working hard. He's got some fatigue in the legs, and also sort of some mental fatigue from the last 2 races. But he's in a position that he wants to be. We saw him last week do something where he I didn't call his name for probably the first half of the long race, and then he was just kind of do in the back, and then he came around and like the second half of the race just dominated. So there's enough real estate for these racers to shake things up. And as you said, since it is technical, there are all these corners, lots of opportunities for mistakes, but lots of opportunities to close those gaps, because you can really pump on the straightaways. And if they're like this right here, for example, Timothy's killing it on the straightaways. You can see him back off on the power. He's got some brake. He goes through the corner. You can see that power drop down, and then boom, right back up 1,000. So he is actually opening up that gap, saying, Beth, stop talking about Carl Axel closing it down, because this is how I maintain the front. And Carl says, oh, I know Timothy's game. Don't worry, it's not working. So how long they can keep up this sprint recovery, it's a type of fitness level that is required for this versus the endurance athlete like Jeff Rooney or Homer. But they're doing quite well in the race as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see Timothy, would have been very interesting had Timothy made the first race. Generally speaking, over the course of the last few weeks, Timothy and Carl have been doing quite well. I would say that generally Carl's been getting the better of it, but Timothy's right there. And I think, a couple of tweaks in terms of his form. And when we talk about form on Cade Sport, we're not just talking about endurance. We're not just talking about power. We're also talking about the form of your skills and how well you're doing through the corners. Carl obviously on form with the clean sweep on Saturday, but Timothy looks to be looking to eliminate a lot of those clean sweeps and to bring up his form, both on the endurance side, the power side, and the skill side. He's very high level on all of those. And I think probably one of the places that is most surprising for me with Timothy is he's really been getting into great shape. And that certainly helps with the mental acuity when you're doing this, right? If you're under a little less pressure physically, it's a little bit easier to do mentally. And you look here, he's extending that gap on Carl, which is very, very interesting here.
Yeah, well, I think here too that so once he made that decision, Timothy made that decision that he was going to try to open it up. Carl had a decision to make, right? And if I know Carl, he's probably doing the maths and being like, okay, well, if I can hold second place, then I get this many points, and if Peter holds that place, I'll get this many points. So he might just be saying, okay, you know what, knock yourself out, Timothy. I'm gonna just, focus on, keeping myself together. And he also, though, there's also, he just crashed down there, but he's at 182 equalized heart rate, and Timothy's at 170. So I do feel like Timothy did a good job of, giving Carl Axel some kicks to the shins there. Carl did crash. He does have Pedro behind him just by a few seconds. He can see him over his shoulder, but I'm not sure that he will be able to, that Pedro will be able to close that down unless Carl Axel makes another mistake. So Timothy using that fitness level that you were talking about, where he was out in front, he was kicking Carl in the shins, but it's not that Carl's fitness level wasn't there. Timothy didn't do the first race, so Carl there gets, he has those 40 points from the first race, so so he'll be just fine, I think, in the final standings here. Another crash there in the corner here. They got to get back up to speed. There's about a 2-second penalty there, so you can do the math there. But on board with Pedro, he's got Sebastian. Dun, 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 dun. Whenever I see Sebastian, I've got the Jaws in my head. Dun, 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 dun. He makes me so nervous here. Timothy, 2.2 kilometers go out in the front. 9 seconds on Carl Axel. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. A little bit distracted by seeing what the numbers are on the road here, but this is great. Pedro's showing you how to do this, and it looks like he's got to catch back up with Carl after that. That was Sebastian showing us how it's done. But I did want to talk about Pedro too. So I do see Pedro really developing into a rider, and he's coming into his own. He's making steady gains every week in his form with regards to skills. It looks to me like he's got the power and the endurance, and as he dials in these skill settings, he's going to be one to watch. I think he's sort of middleweight at the moment, but I think he's destined to become a heavyweight in Cade Sport.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely seen his skill level come up. And, one of the things about building skill with these competitors, it does take a certain psychology and a certain amount of patience, because, most of the cyclists and most of the athletes I know want to be good, not just because they want to win or be competitive, but because it's just in their DNA that they like to be good at things and they are willing to work at them. So I think that what we see here is just a consistency that's required in game, and not just the consistency, but also a dedication to sort of maybe taking some risks and pushing the envelope and figuring out where your guardrails are, and the way the game, is always keeping track of your physiological responses, and you're able to sort of realize a higher level of fitness and engagement just by, like it just feeds on itself, like, oh, now I got that. Now there's always something to work on. You don't just master it. And that's what I think is really beautiful about the dynamics in game.
I think skills are so important to cycling. It goes along with Cade Sport's slogan of stop pedaling, start cycling. I think a lot of the other virtual platforms really overemphasize power is the easiest way for me to say that, and so I see this. And really, I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed today, because if Timothy had made that first race, it would be a little bit more interesting, because I think Carl's walking away with the overall for the day. Now, I think Timothy's going to be happy, taking a win here. I think Jeff's going to be happy taking a win in the last one. But I will say this: I'm going to have to talk to Cade Sport Management. We need to call these train conductors wherever Timothy is and have a little bit of a chat with them. They have got to get Timothy to the race course on time so that he doesn't miss out on the first race. And so we'll see what we can do there.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that, let's see, we've got 0.3 kilometers here to go. I wonder, too, how many points that he might have stolen from Jeff, from Sebastian, and how those standings. I'm not as fast on the quip with those things. If you have a real-time leaderboard, in your back pocket, Frank, is Timothy taking the win here, substantially taking points away from Sebastian and Pedro or Carl in a way that is
Well,
significant?
because Carl's sort of in between, he's ahead of those other people. I think it matters not in the overall. Maybe a few less points going to Sebastian, but not significant. And Pedro. Now we saw Pedro go down there in one of those corners. Otherwise, I think Pedro would have podiumed today. And again, that's just dialing in those skills a little bit with regard to the corners. And everybody should remember: brake before the corners, coast through the corners. You do want to start your acceleration before you're out of the corner, but you want to do it very smoothly, very cautiously, and then as you exit the corner completely, you can stomp on it and really get through the corners. But it does take skill. It's a little bit harder in the virtual world to sort of understand the tightness of a corner. We're all used to that. Erhan doing a sprint here across the line. And our hearts go out to everybody in Turkey, where Erhan is located, Turkey and Syria. Big earthquake there, and very unfortunate conditions there. So hopefully all is well, and our hearts do go out to the people there.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. We are a global racing game and platform, and for sure our hearts are hoping that all of yours are accounted for and okay. Moving into our third race today in our playlist is the 2.3 kilometer race on Cade Kart Aurora. So this race does have a couple power-ups at play. If we have that screen handy, we can show the viewers at home the power-ups. We did have power-ups in the last one too. We didn't shout them out, but there was Razor's Edge in the last one. All right, so race 4, one each of Corner Caper and Quantum Shift, which was the same combo we saw in race 2. We talked a little bit about the strategy of whether you use those power-ups early in the race or whether you use them at the end. And sometimes you use them when you have to, right? So if you're chasing someone down and you need to use a corner caper so you don't slide out, you'll use it then. But if you're in the front, you're kind of choosing when you want to use it. So live results here for the 3 of the 4 races in the playlist. Carl Axel on top, 76. Sebastian, 56. Jeff Rooney and third. Homer, 41. Timothy, Pedro, Jennifer on down the line. So this is one where that first race where Carl got those double points really opened up the lead here with his consistency across the racing. So you can't just take in that feather in your cap and, ride into the sunset. You have to keep working, and Carl Axel is keeping himself fresh here at the top of the list. But Sebastian has an opportunity, but I don't know. Jeff, Homer, do you see any upsets here? I don't really see any upsets here.
Well, I think what's interesting, we want to watch Sebastian and Jeff because they're very, very close. Now, I think advantage Sebastian here because of his skills. And he says, not only my skills, but I'm the beast, and I'm going to go super hard here. Let's see if he gets the timing right. We've got Carl following him with a similar strategy, and they do make it through all the corners. Then they have to brake hard here, not to crash in this particular corner. Great braking. Look at that. Uphill. They're taking into account all of this. It's starting to become like golf. That's an uphill lie to the side, and I've got to brake this way, and I've got to brake this early. And they're doing a fantastic job here. 2 heavyweights going side by side. It'll be interesting to follow the rest of this race. Probably Jeff is already, looks like he's a bit back. Maybe he hasn't used his power-ups yet. Doesn't mean he's gone down. It'll be interesting to see what he does with the rest of the race.
Yeah, we just had a couple crashes there. Peter, Erhan, Martin, not a surprise here. This is these racers experimenting, trying to get a rhythm established when they know that the lead is opening up here. But Carl Axel and Sebastian, so this was one where they didn't want him to get away. So on board with Martin right now, coming down through the tunnel, up around the corner here, does kind of go over the edge. Some folks follow him there.
Oh, Carl goes down. So we missed that, but Carl's crashed twice today. That doesn't seem like a big deal. He had no crashes on Saturday when he took the clean sweep, and he's under a little more pressure today. A couple of mistakes made by Carl, very surprising. And so, I've talked about Timothy putting Carl under pressure, but I stand corrected. Sebastian the Beast is someone to watch for in the coming weeks as well.
Yeah, here they are side by side here in their training environments. And what's interesting to me is that we were saying a couple times, at least I was saying a couple times, that Carl Axel was using those early, establishing the lead and making others chase. And this was an instance where Sebastian said, "No, I'm not letting you get away with that. I am going to pay attention here."
Oh, the gambit there that Timothy made. And if he had just made it through that corner and been able to hit his brakes, he was right there on the tail. Look at this. He makes up so much ground. Right next to Sebastian, and then augers in. So a little bit unfortunate there. Almost made the timing work.
Well, see, and that was the thing. Timothy goes down again, but that was the thing that Timothy and Carl Axel, he probably went down trying to get ahead of Carl Axel, because he did obviously almost catch Sebastian. He wanted to hold that lead in front of Carl Axel to try to get some more points away from Carl Axel, but Sebastian on top by 3 seconds, 0.9 kilometers to go. And so this is where keeping his mind calm while his body is working. Sebastian was unflustered by what was going on behind him. He was unflustered when Carl Axel did the double drops of the power-ups out of the gate. He answered it, said, "I can play there too." Let Carl Axel make that mistake under pressure. I don't know if Carl Axel wasn't expecting that. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, no, I just love the concentration. Look at that concentration. It's so great to be able to see the riders. And it's just, we might see them, displaying a pain face. We might see them, displaying this amount of concentration. And you see Carl here saying, "You know what? I'm going to put the pressure back on Sebastian. I think he's going for the win here." He doesn't like when we talked about a mistake or two that he's made. Great inside line there, really covering it. Oh, and he's got the ability to pass through Carl Sebastian Axel. Here. Another great inside line. Great apex here by Sebastian as well. Oh, it's going to come right down to the line. Very, very interesting. Will someone make a mistake?
Yes.
Or will they be flawless through the end?
Oh my gosh, Frank. And Carl Axel says, "You know what? I am not letting Sebastian walk away with it. I don't care if I need the points or not. I am going to," he used that quantum shift to get through. So he separated. He used his corner caper to establish the race and just used that to get through. Now look at, you can see Sebastian back off as well on his pedals for that last little corner here. So close, so close. Such control, such dedication, such control. But Carl Axel is going to take it across the line by a bike length or two. But that was so close. Nicely done, Carl Axel. That was amazing.
Yeah, sorry. You were talking about control. And it's hard to appreciate how much control those guys had through those final corners. You see Timothy even overbrake there. Magnificent control. You don't really appreciate how much skill there is in that until you go try it yourself and you crash in all of those corners. Kay doing very well. So let's shout out to Kay.
Yeah, Kay is really just showing her just consistent rider, knows the maps, comes out every week in races, and well done, Kay. Got Pedro still out on course. A little bit of love to some of our other riders out there. Pedro, well done. It's going to take time, but he is really moving up along. Homer, looking good, comes across the line. Team CCC. We've got Shaq, we've got Jeff, Vanessa, everyone coming through towards the end, and that's just a tricky spot to have that finish line. And back to that control thing, you see the rider ahead of you. If you just gave your legs a little bit more power, you could come around, but if you do that, you risk crashing. So there's this amazing mental challenge that happens on these shorter courses that is unexpected, I think, if you've not raced in this format in game before. So this was our fourth and final race. This is the way that the standings did. A lot of interplay with Carl and Sebastian there in the front. Timothy almost overtaking Sebastian, did end up having a crash. So some forced mistakes, which are really fun to see. We saw some incredible recovery. We saw some amazing tactics there with those top 3 riders. Kay coming in fourth. I feel like we didn't say your name enough, Kay, because they were doing so much up front that we couldn't keep on moving on. Pedro, Homer, Jeff, Shaq, Vanessa, Jennifer, Mark, and Erhan. a great thing to everyone out there. I know we'll go to the full standings. We're going to be doing, I think, a slightly different play set races on Thursday, maybe the same. I'm not sure what we'll be doing on Thursday. We've been doing them on a weekly basis. I thought that was a really amazing play set of races here. So playlist, rather. I keep saying play set. Playlist of racers here. So this is how we leave it for the day. You want to read us through it, Frank?
Sure. We've got Carl at the top, not scoring over 100 points as he did on Saturday, but still a very high scorer with 91. Sebastian clearly and comfortably in second place, especially with his technical skill on the last race of the day. Jeff suffering, as you can see here, 40 points at the beginning, and then as the races got more and more technical, he was off a little bit, but I think we'll adjust this for Thursday and Saturday. Normally we like to keep them the same, but we'll probably make the third race, we're trying to make the first race and the third race less technical, so we'll shoot for something less technical there. That'll give Jeff a little bit of an advantage or a leg up later in the week. Timothy, you've got fourth here at 51 points. Now think if he'd just been around and scored even like 30 points in that first race, and that's why we'll be talking to the conductors. Homer, fantastic fifth place finish overall, 49.5, doing a lot of work for the team. Looked a little bit domestique on the front of the pack today in the first race, so it's fantastic to see that he finishes fifth overall. You've got Pedro in sixth, becoming more and more consistent. Looking at his finishing position, sort of in the last three races, top five, top six, consistently. Jennifer makes a move, even though she obviously a quick learner, wasn't in the first race. If she'd made that, probably she moves up the leaderboard a little bit more. We've got Martin coming to his own, learning more about the platform, maybe a little bit too technical on the last course. We've got Peter Castro. He's got a ride, by the way, on Sundays, a race that's less technically oriented, definitely more of an endurance thing. So that tells you Peter does enjoy the less technical, more endurance oriented events, and that would have helped him out here today. So hopefully on Thursday and Friday, Peter has a little bit more even playing field with regards to that. And then rounding out the top 10, we didn't talk about her a lot, but obviously she was consistent, and so Kay rounds out the top 10.
Well, that is great. I look forward to seeing all of these riders and more on Thursday. Want to see if that Team CCC can kind of get organized a little bit, see if Team Hive can get organized a little bit, and see if we can have some more tactics at play. But for our Tuesday edition of K Sport Racing, I am Beth, and Frank, thanks for joining me.